Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, May 16th, 2018. Thanks for tuning in. We are having a report in the middle of the day today. Try something different. Take a look at our space weather conditions. Right now, our solar wind speeds at 317.6 kilometers per second. Density is at a 5.9. Taking a look at our sun today, we have 0 sunspots. That is the first day in quite some... All right, folks, we're back. Today is the first day we haven't had a sunspot in quite some time. 74 days for 2018. That now takes us at 55% for the year. Taking a look at our KP indices, right now we're sitting at a 1, and our 24-hour max, I believe, was a 2. Now, the forecast for tomorrow is going to be somewhere in the KP5 range, and then on Friday they're looking at a KP4, which is just under storm levels. There was some earlier reports that there is possibility of a G2 geomagnetic storm. However, it looks like they've scaled that forecast down just a bit. But we'll keep our eyes on it nonetheless. It still could have the potential, but I'll show you the coronal hole that we're looking at. And it pretty much closed up as it was becoming Earth-facing. So if any effect at all, I would be surprised if we did have a G1 storm tomorrow. But the coronal hole was small as it approached Earth-facing. But again, we'll keep our eyes on it. 0 sunspots. As you can see, another coronal hole that is now starting to form right up here in the northern region of the sun. It may just graze us at the northern regions of our magnetic field, but I'm not expecting really a lot right now. We'll keep our eyes on that. And it also looks like we do have a possible active region on the far eastern limb of the sun as well. So lots to keep our eyes on here. And taking a look at our TSI, right now we're looking at reports of 1360.70 flat. That was as of May 6, 2018. What a roller coaster ride this TSI is, up and down, but slowly and steady, staying in the 1360.70 range. And let's go on to some articles. First, I'll go ahead and read off this, thanks to the watchers. And I say thanks to the watchers because the local CBS report was not even nowhere near as extensive as this one. And I thought I would get more from my local CBS affiliates, but the watchers really covered the stats very well on this. At least 5 people have been killed and nearly 500,000 homes are without power after severe thunderstorms sweep through the U.S. and the Northeast on Tuesday, May 15th, 2018. An unsettled wet pattern continues over the eastern U.S. in the end of the week, with flash flooding. Strong thunderstorms are possible over the southern, New England, and mid-Atlantic today. We had downed trees and power lines, produced dangerous lightning strikes that led to structure fires in New Jersey and Massachusetts. Baseball-sized hail was also reported in upstate New York. At the peak of the storm, 496,777 customers in Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut had lost electricity, and the number had declined to 350 by 6 p.m. local time. That was Wednesday, as of today. I'm sorry, a.m. 5 people have reportedly lost their lives. The casualty includes an 11-year-old girl who died in Newburgh, New York, after a tree hit a car she was in with her mother. Andrew Cuomo, the governor, declared a state of emergency in New York, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange, and Sullivan counties. Tweeted that he was deploying members of the New York National Guard to assist with recovery operations. So we will keep our eye on this as the death toll hopefully doesn't go up, but it doesn't sound like they have completed their investigation. Now, the National Weather Service had received more than 100 severe storm reports shortly after 1800 local time, including reports of baseball-sized hail and wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour. All of the Metro North lines have been suspended due to downed trees, leading to frenzy at Grand Central Station in New York City. So we will keep our eyes on this to see if there's any more severe weather. You know, for New York, this is not usually they don't see this kind of weather up in this part of the region. I know we talked about a possible tornado. Actually, they confirmed it, a tornado in Syracuse last week, and now we're talking about this line of thunderstorms that came through yesterday, and they caused some damage for sure. And here's just a little bit here. I'll leave the link in the description here for this article. It pretty much repeats what I just shown, but I pulled this up for, if anything, just for the pictures of the damage. This breaks it down into counties as well here in Massachusetts. This is Berkshire County. Beckett had 1.5 inches of rain reported by 5 p.m. Tuesday. Lightning struck a tree on Barnum Road in Franklin County. This is all local news here. But we did see hail measuring under an inch. Lightning sparked a tree, burned that down. So just a variety of all kinds of damage up and down the Northeast here in New England, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. Again, I'll leave the link in the description. And thunderstorm drops hail and heavy rain in Colorado Springs. So not just the Northeast, but out in the Midwest into the plains, also seen severe weather. A severe thunderstorm dropped hail and heavy rain over Colorado Springs Tuesday evening, causing some minor damage and flooding. News 5 viewer Ann Briggs shared a video from her home near the airport, which showed nickel-sized hail falling with the storm as it moved to the east-southeast a little after 6 p.m. And let's take a look, just a little bit of this footage here. Again, this is not the kind of damaging hail, but still, the amount that fell in the short period of time, as you see in here in this picture, it looks like they got a brief snowstorm here. But lots of report of hail so far here in the U.S. Not as much tornadic information, but lots of report of hail so far this year in the U.S. Of course, worldwide, it's insane. So we're not even seeing the kind of hail that we're seeing over in Greece, Italy, Russia, India, you name it. We're not seeing that kind of hail yet, but it's slowly but surely getting more intense as far as hailfall goes. Thunderstorms, farmers suffer loss of mango crop in northern India. It seems like I can find a crop loss story every single day out of India. Apart from inflicting loss of lives and properties, the recent thunderstorm that has also destroyed the mango harvest in northern India. One of the affected farmers in the district told news agency on Monday that he suffered loss about 1 lanka. I think that's, I hate guessing, but I think that's about 1 million in U.S. in rubles, I believe. Don't hold me to that. He appealed to the government and provided to give him an aid. He said he suffered a loss. It will be good for the government to chip in. Otherwise, we are destroyed. So imagine being some of these Indian farmers, and I've talked about this many times, that he's not exaggerating. You know, people get panicky when things hit crisis mode. But believe me, when this guy here in India says that without the aid of the government for crop loss, they would definitely be destroyed, and he's not kidding. So many people lose their lives from stress, believe it or not. There was a report a couple weeks ago of a gentleman who saw the damage to his crops, had a heart attack right there on the spot, and died at the hospital. So not just suicides, but this is affecting their livelihood, and I can only imagine being under that kind of pressure, especially being a farmer with no help from the government. More talk about crops here. We have exceptional drought in the Southwest means more bad news for grain. A large swath of the U.S. remains in extreme exceptional drought. The region missed out on more than April showers. Less than 2 inches of rain has fallen across much of West Texas since last October, compared with an average of about 10 inches over the same period last year. The exceptional drought in the Panhandle, in an area dominated by agriculture, has more than doubled in size. Many farmers rely on precipitation to help water their crops, as pumping groundwater is the only other option. He says right now we are in irrigation period, and it really would be fantastic to get some precipitation out in those areas, said Cole Perryman of the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. They've had a lot of rain out here. The last 3 years have been pretty wet for them. So this is kind of sudden. And the way our jet stream patterns have been setting up, no matter how much moisture it seems like the rest of the country is getting, spread out to areas like here in the Southwest that were raising concern: Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas, really bad. And of course, Arizona and New Mexico are probably the worst areas as far as the drought goes. Let's do a quick roundup of yesterday's volcano news. We had an earthquake swarm that started near the small Indian Ocean island of Mayotte on May 10th and continues to this date. Mayotte is the oldest volcano island in the Comoros Basin grouping, and quakes likely are the result of seismic hotspot, as well as the island's position along the East African Rift. The first quake was felt at the population that felt it, actually, it says around 2319 UTC on May 10th. That was a 4.5. Now, the strongest earthquake in sequence so far was a 5.1 that occurred on the 14th at 1441 UTC. Other earthquakes are likely to be felt by the population in the hours and days to come, says the BRGM. Magnitudes equivalent to those of Sunday and Monday morning earthquakes are still possible. These earthquakes do not produce damage, and although at sea, are too weak to generate tsunamis. So these are just other signs of seismic activity and volcanic activity that could be on the verge of awakening as well. But this is one of the oldest volcanoes known, and I'm trying to look for a date when the last time, if they have a record of when it did go off. I will leave the link in the description. I apologize for that, folks. I thought I had that information. But once again, thanks to the watchers for great information. We'll stick around on the volcano side. The eruption of Shimoda Volcano reached 25,000 feet yesterday. Now remember, it's got to get to around 55,000 to make a difference as far as changing the climate or anything like that. Still an impressive explosion. The eruption sent ash up to 7.6 kilometers above sea level, making it nearly 1 kilometer higher than April 4th's eruption, and the highest since the series of eruptions began in March of 2018. The JMA has maintained the alert level at 3, meaning people should stay away from the mountain and remain cautious of falling large rocks within 3 kilometers, 1.8 miles radius of the crater. Let's take a look. There was some pretty impressive footage the other day I saw of Merapi as well. Some people were on the side of the mountain as it went off, and pretty big ash plume. But again, we have to be somewhere in that 55,000 sky mark here to really make a difference. This is going to be right at the beginning. It's starting up. You see it right there. Let's see if I can get it when it starts going off real quick. Actually, I won't do that. Last time we played a video from the JMA, we got struck down, banned worldwide for it. So go ahead and check that out, folks. I got the link in the description. Going to also, actually, before we go there, we have to do a quick Kilauea update, as always. And right now, we are looking at aviation alerts at red. As of May 15th local time, UTC, eruption of ash from the overlook vent within the Halamaluma'a crater in Kilauea's volcano summit has generally increased in intensity. Ash has been rising nearly continuously from the vent and drifting downwind to the southwest. Now, ashfall and vlog have been reported in Pahala, about 29 kilometers downwind. Ash emissions from the Kilauea summit vent will likely be variable, with periods of increased and decreased intensity depending on the occurrence of rockfalls into the vent. So basically what we're seeing here are ash plumes from fallen rock around the crater. As you know, the lava lake has nearly drained, and scientists are just now waiting for that that eruption that they are expecting to happen. Once it does happen, we're talking about boulders the size of refrigerators being thrown miles into the air. It will not be safe at all to be in the area, just from also the air quality, which they're already having issues with that, as we have now 20 fissures that have been confirmed so far at Kilauea. Still an ongoing situation, and we will definitely continue to cover this as well. What's up with that? These guys have had a really good streak here. I've seen a really good article on their website almost every day that I go to it. But more and more information is really backing the cause here about how we're starting to see this, what do you want to call it, a revolution of climate discussion now. And I say revolution, I got a couple other stories here I'll bring up just in a second. But NASA says the greening of the planet is due to increased CO2. Now remember that line, folks, because it's going to be very relevant here just in a few minutes. These guys are arguing, and when he says these guys, he's talking about the UN, that saying increased forest growth correlates strongly to the UN Development Program Human Developed Index. And it says here, right, they say that Europe's early turnaround and explanation of forest resources obviously can't be attributed to the rapid rise of atmospheric carbon dioxide that began decades later. By the same token, the UN didn't exist until decades later, and they sure as hell haven't had any impact on the greening of the eastern United States as shown on the map below. Yeah. And that's weird that they brought this up too. I don't know about you folks if you live in this area. I've mowed my grass twice in the last week. In this area particularly, it's once a week you're usually good. Now today's difference was I couldn't get over how extraordinary green my grass is right now. And it makes sense to me. We're at record levels CO2. We've had plenty of moisture all year round so far in 2018 and mostly of 2017. And with this increased amount of CO2 in our atmosphere, I think it's noticeable to me. It's up and down the street. It's not just my yard. Everyone's grass looks a lot greener. Now, I know I'm used to seeing the white stuff. We saw it all winter long, but I'm telling you, you could actually tell how much greener things are around here. And we started noticing this too in the wintertime. Even when the snow would melt, the grass under the snow was still green. There was very little brown grass this year. And we had a brutal winter, in my opinion, as far as cold temperatures. Nothing should have survived that. So once again, this was kind of like a setup article for what's coming here. But I wanted to point that out. NASA says that greening of the planet is due to increased CO2. And then we have the Energy 202. Wilbur Ross declined to endorse his own department's climate science findings. It says here, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross declined to defend the work of climate scientists at NOAA, noting that the agency's numerous reports on global warming have been reviewed less favorably by some critics. During a talk at the National Press Club on Monday, Ross was asked by an audience member whether he accepts NOAA's findings that humans are the primary drivers of climate change. Ross started his response by saying, "I'm not going to get into a climate debate." But then he goes on saying, Commerce Department's NOAA has issued various reports that reflect the thinking of their scientists. And those reports in general have been reviewed, sometimes favorably, sometimes less so, by other people in that field. So I think I'll just let the record speak for itself. Interesting enough that this gentleman here is, excuse me for scrolling so fast here, I do apologize. But interesting enough that this gentleman here is not interested in the work that has been done that says what the man-made global warming is real. Still, Ross said he was unwilling to disrupt the dissemination of science. If conferred, I intend to see that the department provides the public with as much factual and accurate data as we have available. A response to a letter Nelson sent last year regarding climate science. It's a public tax dollars that support the department's scientific research. And barring some national security concern, I see no valid reason to keep peer-reviewed research from the public. Now, this is what Scott Pruitt was trying to say before the media ripped him apart and saying that he's a climate denier. No, he's not dismissing science either. He just wants actual proof, and there's no reason why these peer-reviewed papers should be kept from the public. I agree with that 110%. And with that being said, this was my favorite headline of last night. Hang on a second, folks. Hang on a second. All right, I needed a drink of water for this one. Trump administration cuts all government funding for NASA global warming program. This will no doubt make liberals a bit hot under the collar. A so-called climate change monitoring system has just been scrapped by the Trump administration, saving taxpayers money but sending backers of global warming theories into a tailspin. According to the Washington Examiner, the proposed carbon monitoring system would have used satellites to study signs of climate change at the cost of $10 million a year. Now, you think about this for a minute. $10 million a year is not that much money when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. So Trump's not being tight. What's happening here, guys, is that the information that Trump is getting in his administration is that CO2 does not cause warming. CO2 causes a greening effect. And they're learning about cycles of the oceans and the sun. They're looking at historic data. The claims of people saying that the Trump administration does not believe in the science is absolutely false, and it's slander. But I want to go on and continue to read this real quick, because this is a huge, huge victory for anyone in the global cooling community. Anyone. This is so important. However, the NASA-backed program is nowhere to be found in the federal spending deal signed last month, making it essentially grounded. So it wasn't like that Trump just said we're scrapping it. It's kind of like what they did to Milton in the movie Office Space. They just stopped giving him a paycheck. That's what they're doing to NASA. NASA spokeswoman Steve Cole told Science Magazine that existing grants for the program will be allowed to finish, but no new research will be supported. NASA also declined to provide a reason for the cancellation beyond budget constraints and higher priorities within the science budget. I'll tell you why they had no comment. Because they know the jig is up. We finally have leaders in this country, and he's cutting the fat, first of all, guys. He's trimming the fat. He pulled us out of a Paris climate treaty that wanted the richer nations, United States of America, to help foot the bill of $100 billion a year by 2020. And who knows how long that would continue. And then you've got another $10 million going to NASA studying the effects of CO2 and warming. The reason why this funding is getting cut is because this administration has looked at the science. They have advisors. They've seen peer-reviewed work. And they know that CO2 does not cause warming. Period. It's a green effect. There always has been, and the science is showing that. From ice data cores, from the sediments from ocean floors, tree rings, you name it. We released a series called The Weather Machine, and it was from 1975. Some people kind of bitched about it because it was old and outdated and the music was creepy and, it just all looked like you were back in your, social studies class from, back in the day. But there was a reason why I put that up, and some of you got it. Just to hear some of the words that this gentleman was talking about holds true to this day still. So this is not just some kind of wishy-washy fantasy that folks over here in this community have just, are latched onto because, it's just the new thing to do. It's based on historical data. And the science that is involved with studying our climate and the past climate is tedious. And I think the Weather Machine documentaries paid a great tribute to those scientists who go through these ice cores and do all the testing and do that long enduring work that a lot of us probably wouldn't have the patience to do. So science is a big deal. When you hear someone saying the Trump administration doesn't believe in science, that's false. Because if it was true, we'd still be in the Paris Treaty Climate Act. We'd still be funding NASA's BS program about CO2 warming the planet and man-made global warming. I can tell you right now, guys, as much disclosure we've seen so far, every month there's more and more talk about cooling. More and more people, more and more scientists are agreeing that we are heading into a deep solar minimum, which could lead us into the next little ice age, Maunder minimum. Too many papers out there that are proven right now. Fewer sunspots equals cooler temperatures. More sunspots, more energy from the sun, warmer temps. The science is there. I had a guy leave me a link to watch a video about man-made global warming and how we're going to continue to warm throughout 2017 and beyond. I told him I'd watch his interview if he'd watch my interview with John Casey and explain to him, why. We're not just coming out with these fantasy fairy tales with celebrity like Al Gore backing global cooling or anything like that. We don't have that. We have actual scientists backing this theory. It's not even a theory now. It's fact. The research has proven it worldwide. All right, so let's check out our weather. Speaking of grand solar minimum, we are seeing much more moisture falling due to cosmic ray influx. More particles in the atmosphere create more moisture, raindrops, snowflakes, etc. And as I've been talking about, we are really going to start seeing an increase of moisture coming on the 15th through the 16th. Now let's go through to this week here. Here we are on May 15th. That's Tuesday. How about we start on the 16th? All right. So I don't even think that's right. I'm having problems with tidbits today, guys. So the GFS here is showing us a chance of showers in western New York today, which I have not seen that yet in the forecast. So I'm not quite sure if there's a glitch here. But taking a look at that low pressure system that the National Weather System actually gave a 40% chance of development. It doesn't look to be too intense. It's very disorganized right now. But notice all these pop-up storms here in eastern Texas and the panhandle of Oklahoma. This is the area we were talking about that needs the most rain. So let's hope that they get this actual rainfall that the GFS is predicting. And as we move on through the end of the week and later today, we see chances of moisture from Florida all the way up into Maine, all the way back to Kansas. So a large portion of the country is going to start seeing an increase for showers. We go through Thursday, same thing. Most of the east, southeast, you're going to be looking at showers. Look at these high thunderstorms here in the Canada border area near Montana. Heavy rain there. Thankfully, that does not touch us anymore. And Montana doesn't need any more heavy rain right now. But look at the jet stream. You could see the jet stream. This is nuts. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I've just never seen such a weather pattern with this much rain scheduled to fall and how far these rain bands go. Now, I know these are just forecasted ideas, but for almost a week, I mean, look at Sunday this weekend. The East Coast from the eastern tip of Iowa all the way to the Atlantic Ocean and southward, we're going to have rain. Light rain, but rain. And again, these pop-up popcorn storms right here in eastern Texas through the panhandle of Oklahoma. This area desperately needs that rain, but we're still looking for more moisture to fall in this region as well. But right here, we do see a double shot. Earlier in the week, we will see this kind of storm activity on Thursday into Friday, and again by Sunday. But once I move it out into Monday, again, the east-southeast gets drilled. Another low-pressure system into the east coast. And now we're starting to see the intense. It's almost like we're starting to see it kind of move offshore a little bit. And then by the 23rd of May, we're inundated with moisture once again up and down the east coast. And here's that region on Thursday. Once again, the GFS is showing that same pattern of storms popping up right here. And the good news is it's starting to make its way further west. Now, this is just, the 24th, so we're still quite some time out. But that's encouraging for folks that live out there. And then by the end of the month, May 27th, forecasted just, typical spring weather, really. Showers, showers, more showers. Still keeping an eye on one particular system. It hasn't really made up its mind what it's doing yet. Some models don't have it doing anything. But here at the GFS, we've shown this before where this bad boy kind of hangs out in this region right here for some time. In fact, let's see when we actually first start seeing that. I think we see development right about here. So that's on Monday, May 21st. And as we continue to watch this region, that storm just kind of hangs out in that region until finally on the 27th, this will move into the Gulf. This has been consistent now. Something is going to be in the Gulf by the end of the month, maybe by hurricane season. Now, we've seen this before where storms just fall apart, like the one they thought had a 40% chance of getting its act together. But last year we had some storms that in 24 hours turned into a Cat 3, Cat 4 hurricane. So we'll just have to keep our eyes on these storms. They're already predicting this season to be just as bad as last year, if not worse. So that's going to do it for us today on our Grand Solar Minimum News Update. We hope you got something from the video. And guys, please like and share as many places as you can. We need to get the information out now. I think we're starting to see a pickup in intensification of dust storms, thunderstorms, severe weather, flooding, hail, you name it. Now, luckily so far, earthquakes and volcanoes, it goes hand in hand. But we haven't seen the tornado activity that we normally see in the springtime in the United States. So that has been the only thing that has been in our, positive for us. We did see some freak tornadoes in January and February, but the reason for that is, how all that cold air keeps dipping into the plains. We're not quite getting those really hot dew point temperatures. The instability is not there that we need. So, we don't need tornadoes, so this is a good thing. But that's about the only silver lining we've seen so far this spring. Tons of flooding, tons of snow, tons of hail, and unfortunately tons of reports of people losing their lives to these storms. So we'll just have to keep our eyes on this, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk soon.